Welcome to the Motivation Without the Hype podcast with your host, Jez Perez. He's an author, high-performance coach, and motivational speaker. This show brings you inspiring messages and interviews to unleash your greatness in life and in business. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Motivation Without the Hype podcast show. My name is Jez Perez, former procrastinator into an action taker. We bring you inspirational messages and interviews, including motivational insights, tips, principles, and proven strategies that you can take action without the hype in unleashing your greatness in life and in business. We appreciate you plugging in and spending time with us, and we have very special guests, and I'm super grateful to have him on our show. His name is Mark Puno. Mark Puno is the founder and the director of Three Peaks International. Mark came to Sydney in 2003 to study his master's. Upon finishing, he spent the next 13 years working in the supply chain planning, operation, and logistics space, which is the FMCG, specifically in the food and beverage industry. Mark has never really thought about going into business, but turning point came while he was working for a large, well-known brand, which wasn't doing very too well. He found himself with realization that he'd rather be managed out or made redundant. This has caused him to take a psychical behavior test, which identified possible areas of interest that he could pursue, and came across law as one of the areas. Mark didn't want to do a full-blown law degree, but then came across migration law, which only then required 6 to 12 months of study, and which he could either work for someone or work for himself. Armed with this knowledge, he enrolled himself in the migration law with ANU and studied while working full-time. Three Peaks International really started as a migration agency in the beginning while doing business. Then he added the recruitment and then subsequently the outsourcing or virtual staffing side of the business. Fast forward today, he has one of few agencies who can offer innovative staffing solutions, from local recruitment, where we find the best talent, the best of the best in the local market area or marketplace, international recruitment, where we source candidates from overseas and manage the entire visa process, and virtual recruitment, where it's connecting local businesses with virtual professionals. So I am so happy and I'm really excited to have Mark on our show. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining in today's podcast show. So please, to those who don't know you yet, tell us about yourself and what you do.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Jess. I consider it a great privilege to be even invited on your podcast. So thank you again so much. Well, look, you've done a very comprehensive intro, but just to say something that's not on my resume, I'm a husband of one, a father of two girls. I've been I've been serving in church since I've been diapers. Basically, grew up in church. Like I said, I was a migrant. I came here to study my master's, and then eventually got into supply chain logistics operations. And through that, I was basically connecting with people, whether it was myself or connecting people with other people, just to get the job done. And that's the skill that I use primarily in what I do now, which is as a recruitment agency, we basically connect Australian businesses with local or international or virtual talent.
Wow. So I know that through your bio, it's been a major journey, and
Yeah.
you learn along the way,
hmm
but with your decision-making process, how's that shaped your destiny towards life and in business and where you are right now?
Yeah. Look, when you're younger, right, a lot of your decisions really just revolve around you, right? How your career is gonna look like, what you're gonna get out of it, how much money you're gonna get, what are the perks involved with the job, and that's perfectly fine. I think as you go on in life, as you mature, you realize that it's not all about you, and along the line, you get a few bumps and bruises, so you learn from experience as well. But the main thing I think for me, and this is probably a testimony, is just more finding out and discovering God's call and purpose in your life. And once you kind of figure that out, and I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of materials about calling and all of that, and I don't really want to get into that because there is quite a lot. But I think once you discover um, that uniqueness of why you're called into that specific season of life, everything else kind of falls into place. So you learn by that, right? And then obviously with the people around you, you learn from experience as well. You learn from their experience as well about the things that they've gone through, and a lot of it can either be um, something inspiring where you go, yeah, I want to be like that, or I want to do similar things like that, or you go, oh, I definitely don't want to experience that same thing. I don't want to go through that pain, so I better smarten up, right? So I guess those things kind of mold you into your decision making now, but obviously with a family, it takes a whole different perspective, a whole different meaning when you're making decisions, because it's really not about yourself anymore. It's really about your wife, your family, what's good for them. You to a degree, you kind of go, well, not so much me now, but how can I impact my kids? How can I impact my family? How can I make their life better? Right? Because essentially that's what we're here for, right? It is to make an impact on people, and it starts with family.
And I know you're a man of principles and values. And ladies and gentlemen, those who don't know, Mark and I, we're really great friends, great brothers, and we've gone through the highs and the lows in
Yeah,
business. I've
yeah,
learned so much from Mark. And Mark, not only that you're values driven, you have so much perspective in life about leadership, about business, kingdom
yeah,
living, and particularly with family.
yeah,
Can you just share us, your insights about how that's actually kept you going
yeah,
with the vows that you hold, particularly with your
yeah,
with the principles that you follow by?
yeah. Well, look, in terms of leadership, I'm a firm believer that you can only lead according to how you're built, right? Yes, we do have leadership mentors, leadership models that we look up to and follow, but at the end of the day, you lead according to how God made you. And growing up, um, I never really understood that because, like for me, being in youth ministry, that has a lot of pressure in it. And then going from that to university, and then from university to work, uh, I found myself, whether liking it or not, or realizing it or not, that I was put in leadership positions, and I didn't really understand it then. To me, at that time, leadership was all about prestige. It was all about the external. It was all about um, making yourself look good, or at least appearing to look good. But then it was only probably at the later stage of my life, being more involved in church and getting more into the Bible, that I realized that, you know what, um, you really lead based on how God's made you, right? And once you accept that, there's like a burden that gets lifted from you. You realize that you can't please everyone, but at the same time, you can impact people, right? And it's not about it's certainly more about how you communicate, how you relate to people. Being in supply chain, we didn't achieve our goals by being the best of what we could do. We achieved our goals because we were good at relationships. And I find that and same thing with Christianity, like Jesus came, it's all about relationships, right? So in the same way, as leaders, we achieve through relationships. Yes, we can do stuff that what we can do, but we achieve through the relationships that we have with people, with business. So that's the first thing, right, in terms of leadership. um, but then with business, it's the same thing as well, that you can only become the business person you are based on how you're built, how God made you. I can't be the flashiest person out there. I can't. I'm not the most eloquent person out there. But you know what? I can be the most genuine version of me out there. Because when I'm the best version of me, I represent my brand the best way. And the best way is to be really upfront with my customers, upfront with my clients, being upfront with my suppliers as well, and just being true to my word. And do I get it all the time? No, but you learn from your
Mm.
mistakes and you move on from there.
So, transitioning into business, can
Mm,
really be a fearful thing. What
mm,
are the things that, people should consider in starting out, and what are the smart steps to actually take? Because you've got so much, life experiences, particularly with the journey
yeah,
that you're in.
yeah.
Um, Can you share just a little bit of that?
Yeah, well, look, I like I said, I had spent just to give a bit of context, right? So I had spent 13 years in supply chain planning and all of that, and with FMCG, it's a really stressful environment because being in supply chain, um, if everything goes right, you don't get the credit. If everything goes wrong, you get all the blame, right? That's pretty much how supply chain works. If you're in planning and all of that, you really get it, right? The good thing about that was that I learned to connect with people. I learned to relate to different levels within the organization, from your forklift drivers, your pick packers, your truck drivers, all the way up to your CEOs, your CFOs, and all of them. So you really had to relate to different kinds of people, right? But at the end of the day, I just found myself. I remember this, and again, this might be a bit of a testimony. I was working for an ink company, and this happened prior to that. What I mentioned in the bio about me working for a global brand and me finding myself with the realization that I'd be managed out or made redundant, right? This was before that, and I just remember working, and everything was going right. I was in a groove, and then suddenly I believe now that that's really God speaking to me. There's the Holy Spirit just really speaking to me and saying, "This is not what I made you to do." And I distinctly heard that voice, and I was like, "What is that?" And I just remember from that point onwards, things started turning south. And for a while, I questioned, should I still be in this industry? So for a while, I really struggled with that until I discovered that, hey, you're called to different things. You're called. There's a call to ministry where you use your gifts, and there's a call to vocation where you use what you have, your education, your skills, and all of that, right? So it took a while for me to reconcile that, but then throughout that, like God can use you either way, right? So in just going back to that question, the main thing for me, in terms of transitioning to from 13 years of supply chain to business, um, first of all, is the realization of finding out what is the why, right? Why do you want to do this, right? Why do you want to go into business? Why do you want to sell this product? Why do you want to offer that service? Is it because you can do it better? Is it because you can do it cheaper? Is it because that you're going to make more impact by doing it this way? Or is it because you just want to cut out the other guy? Again, it's all about the why. And the reason why the why is important, I know there's a lot of material about this, but it's true, is that when you know the why behind what you do, it actually sustains you. I remember especially when you hit the really low parts of business. I just remember when I quit a very cushy job and I went full time into business. The first 6 months was the hardest 6 months of my life, and I just remember um, sitting, just really realizing that, you know what, I don't really have a lot of money in my bank account. So I'm going to have to take another job because I still need my to feed my family. But even while I was doing that, the why was still well alive inside me. It never occurred to me that I'm gonna quit because this is just too hard, right? The why was still with pretty much burning inside me, and I was like, this is what God's called me to do. I have no idea how this is going to look like. And even now, sometimes, third or my fourth year into business, there's still times I'm like, man, it's really tough. It's really tough, like I need prayer. But you know what? The why is still burning stronger inside me now than it was before, right? So knowing the why um, really is a very important part of considering whether you want to go into transitioning into full time into business, whether it's full time or part time, side hustle or full time hustle, it doesn't matter. The why is what's going to carry you through the good times and especially the bad times. The second is what I call the I, which is basically your personal circumstance. Now, a single guy, in his 30s, um, with a whole lot of savings behind him, can really go into a full-time business, right? Because he has a lot of string behind him, and he doesn't really have to think much except himself, right? And that's great. If you're in a position like that, or a single lady, right? If you're in a position like that and you're thinking, hey, you know what? It is worth the risk because, yeah, you know, you can get another job if you want, or you can transition to another career, whatever, right? But then if your circumstance is more like you have a mortgage, you have kids, you've got bills, you've got a whole lot of stuff that you're committed to, it takes on a different color. Now, for me, when I transitioned, I found that um, I wasn't short on faith, but I was short on patience because at that season of life, I was getting frustrated at work, and I was like, you know what, stuff this. But if I could speak to myself back then, I would have gone, "This is a learning moment for you. You may want to pay attention to it." Right? That's what I was. I wouldn't say go, stop, don't quit the job. I would just go, "This is a learning moment for you. You better pay attention." Right? So again, considering the eye and obviously the finances come into play, but that's the first thing that comes into mind. But also the lifestyle as well. Being um, everyone starts out, or nearly everyone starts out as a solopreneur, a micropreneur, whatever preneur you can think of. Um, Everyone starts off like that. Nearly everyone I can think of starts like that. There's only a few, very few that I can think of that pretty much said, I'm going to be a venture capitalist, right? Then, yeah, all right, cool. If you have the connections, go ahead and do it. But pretty much everyone starts small. And when you go into business, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it because you do pretty much everything. You're the marketing guy, you're the finance guy, you're the ops guy, you're the whatever guy, you're the I will do whatever to make things work guy, right? So if you're prepared to go um, into that kind of lifestyle, then yes. But then if you're kind of like chilled, laid back, don't want to do too much, then you might want to have a think about this because perhaps maybe not. I'm not saying don't go into business, but perhaps maybe you would consider going into partnership with someone, right? Who say if you really have the knack for marketing or talking to people or meeting up with people, then perhaps you would find someone who's like a doer, like he or she just gets the job done. But I don't really want to talk to people that much because I'm a shy guy, I'm an introvert kind of thing. Then perhaps that's the better avenue for you, right? So again, the I or your personal circumstance is a big determinant of that. The third thing that I can think of is the we, which is the people around you, and you don't often think about this, but support and community plays a big part in staying in business. Right? I don't know what the stats are, but um, uh, X amount. There's a big portion of businesses, first-time business that don't even make the first year. A certain percentage that don't even make the third year, and a smaller percentage that don't even make it to 5 years. Right. So part of that is the reason is that those people didn't have the support that they needed. Now, for me, I was the same thing. Like I was starting from scratch. Like I was a migration agent. I knew the law, but I didn't know the people. I didn't know my market. I just like I'll do visas. I'll do whatever visas, right? Again, if I could talk to then 4 years ago, I would just go. You need to do a bit of thinking with this and surround yourself with people that can help you because you don't have to think about everything yourself, right? So that was a steep learning curve for me. Um, just another thing in terms of um, surrounding yourself with people that support you. One thing that I've learned is that sometimes that you need to be careful about what I call the gatekeepers in your life, right? Because and these people aren't necessarily the ones that are closest to you. And I say this because you can have the closest person with you, the most well-meaning people, but they have no clue what you're trying to do. They have no clue what you're attempting to do. They have no clue about the passion that you have to do what you're doing. So a lot of times we surround ourselves, we have these gatekeepers, right, that we talk to. But then these gatekeepers really um, just shut the gates on a lot of things, but don't really open the gates on things that you need to have in your life, you need to hear in your life, right? And sometimes the stuff that you don't want to hear, those are the things that go through, right? I just remember, again, going through that season of life where um, our finances were down, and I reached out to this really um, close family member, and I said, "Look, can you pray for me?" And I got a sermon out of that, and that hurt me really bad, you know. And but I realized then that, you know what, it's not his fault, because he doesn't know how this is to me. Like, he doesn't know why I'm called out to do. So it's very important to really seek those um, that share that same calling with you. In the same way, I'm also a big advocate and a big fan of mentoring, of coaching kind of thing. I've sought out mentors all my life. So for me, having someone there to just bounce ideas off, to learn from people that have gone through or what I'm going through, and to just be encouraged by that, that really means a lot for me. So again, that's, you've got the why, the I,
I
and
and the
you've got
we.
the we, right? So I
That's
think,
powerful.
yeah. So I think if you consider those things, right, if you want to transition to business, and there's probably a few more things out there that we can throw in, um, but definitely those three things you need to consider before you transition to business.
With transitioning to business, whether you're solopreneur, micropreneur, all the preneurs out there,
Yeah.
I know that you've moved from migration as your main services, but then you've also integrated other services in Three
Mm,
Peaks International, which is
mm,
outsourcing. There are a lot of trends out there that our businesses are actually offloading and outsourcing. Can you
yeah.
tell us a bit about what are the benefits, why people or entrepreneurs should consider or even think about outsourcing? And from your experience,
Mm,
that you've seen the business side of operations that actually alleviates a lot of the tasks that actually helps
yeah.
business owners do a lot more and focus in the business rather than on the business.
Yeah. Well, first of all, outsourcing has been there for ages, right? We saw it with big companies. And that's why you got the call centers from India, call centers from the Philippines, is because, you get the skills, but you don't necessarily get the big cost attached to it if you had it here. So that's why you outsource it. You use your technology to work for you. These guys are willing to work the odd hours that normal people, average people like you and me would consider not working. So that's been there for a while. I think the main thing now, especially for small to medium enterprises, is that they think that outsourcing um, is mainly for larger businesses, larger scale, or not even large, but more established businesses. The main thing with outsourcing, when it comes to small to medium sized business, is not the question about cost, right? Because that's the first thing I get asked: how much is this going to cost? I thought I was going to save like 50% on the cost. It's not that. The question that small to medium enterprises should be asking is, how much do I value my time, right? Because there's different ways to value your time. The first being the monetary way to value your time, which is like, if I were to ask you as an employee, and whoever, right? How much do you get paid per hour? 30, 40, $50, right? Okay. So if you get paid $50 an hour, I would just go in, what are the core functions of your role, right? Of which you are paid $50 an hour. And I guarantee you that the core functions of their role, unless they're fully employed to be like admin, accounting, all of that. And again, I'm talking about small businesses here where you're wearing different hats, right? The main thing as a small business owner, medium-sized business owner, is to make sure that the business is sustainable, right? So if that was your job, right? If that was your main thing as the business owner, which is really to either, market, get money in, whatever, right? then wouldn't it make sense for you to spend the majority of your time doing that thing, right, which sustains the business, rather than those things that are necessary but don't really value add to your business, right? So, for example, for me, um, I one of my strengths, now I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but one of my strengths is really talking to people, relating to people, right? Because I've had, being in supply chain, that's what I did. So the main thing for me is to really go out there and talk to people and get in front of people, and really see, how I can help them out. Like, what's the problem? What's your problem that I can solve? Right? That's the main, because I value my time. Like, I can, as a migration agent, I charge at a certain rate, right? So my clients pay me for my expertise to provide them migration advice, and they pay me X amount of dollars per hour, right? And same thing when I quote for my services, that's because I budget according to the forecasted hours I would be working on that visa and the monetary value attached to that hour, right? So that's the main thing, right? How much do you value your time, right? If you don't value your time that much, then of course you're going to be conscious about cost, right? Of course you're going to think about this. You're going to be penny pinching here and there, right? Guaranteed. The other thing is the non monetary value of your time, which is the time that you have to sleep. That's major, right? Let's not underestimate the time you have to sleep, the time that you spend with kids, the time that you spend with your spouse, the time that you spend with your friends, the time to read, the time to go watch a movie, those kind of things. We place different values on them. So for me, um, my value is, me spending time with my kids, me being able to drop them off and pick them up and make sure that they do their homework, make sure that they're fed dinner. It may be like, oh, dude, that's so boring, but I value that time with them, right? I don't like anything taking anything away from my time with my kids. And same thing with my wife. Like, we both work hard. But then, you know what? At like 9 or 10 p.m., I would like, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna chat with you because I value my time with you. I don't care if I feel a bit tired the next day. I value my time with you. I don't want to sit down in front of my desk for another hour or so just so that I can get a few sales quotes out. That can wait till tomorrow, right? So that's the thing, right? And that's the thing that most business owners don't really ask the question of. So once you know the value of your time, then you can go, well, um, what things can I then delegate or outsource so that, I get bang for my buck. The things that I'm not really good at, the things that eat away at my time, those are the things that I need to push out. So that's the value, that we provide. Is we provide you the value of time, not just the value of our expertise, but the value of time that we can look after that for you. But again, with small business owners, a lot of them just focus on the cost, and I know because I was like that too, and sometimes I fall back into that trap where, I've got like a team of 10 right now in Manila, and sometimes like we need to invest into platforms, into applications and all of that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, man, these are expensive, right? But then I realized that, hang on, if I don't invest into this, then it means that they're slower at their job, which means that they're less effective at what they do, which means that if they're less effective at what they do, they're not really making my client happy. So my client being happy because they're efficient and effective at what they do translates to me getting more work, more business. Therefore, the investment that I put in makes it worth it.
Absolutely. And that's when you
Yeah,
invest time, and
yeah,
time
that's
is
right.
valuable in any
Yeah,
business, right?
that's right.
Wow, that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
Mark, I know that I asked this question to every guest that's
Mm,
on the podcast show, and
yeah.
guys, there's so much nuggets within these episode, and I encourage everyone to go back and rewind to re-listen those 3 steps of of the why, I, and we, plus why it's important not only to outsource but how you can actually scale your business to the next level. So, Mark, what is your meaning of motivation without the hype, and how do you use motivation for your personal success?
Well, for me, motivation, um, is pretty much the foundation of obviously we've talked about the why. So we've gotten that out of the way, right? So we're now talking about the daily grind, right? The nitty gritty, right, of everyday stuff happening, right? Motivation is really the foundation of what we do, right? So for me, it's important like to think of your mind as a tank, right? You have a choice what you fill that tank with. You can fill it with bad stuff or good stuff, right? So for me, I realized that what fills my tank, number one, and I didn't really think I'd be able to do this, but going to the gym, right? Just going to the gym, getting a good workout. I call it the half hour of hell, right? Sometimes it goes into 45 minutes, depending
Yeah.
if I'm waking up. But it's like when I'm there, I'm not there to socialize. I'm not rude, but I'm not there to socialize.
Yeah.
I'm there to work, right? It's like let's get this done, right? And I'm now into my third year of going into the gym regularly for like 4 or 5 times a week. Um, but it's really, that's the first start of my day. That's what fills my tank, right? The second is reading, right? You are what you read. I'm not a wide reader, but I'm quite selective about what I read. So obviously, you try to do your devotions. You try to read books that interest you. So for me, leadership is a big thing. So I like reading books from John Maxwell, and I like listening to podcasts. So that fills my tank. And then I also surround my people such as yourself, where we can just be real, right? It's not being in business, being in ministry is not all highs. It's really about it's you get your highs and you get your lows, but it's all about being steadfast, being consistent, being faithful at what you're called at. And sometimes you've got to recalibrate a few things here and there because life happens, mindsets change sometimes. But by and large, again, the why is still there. But it's the motivation that keeps you going, right? It's really like, well, why am I doing this? Well, it's because of this.
Powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Mark, thank you so much. Guys, you got to re-listen again to this episode. It's been phenomenal and how you can, not only with what we've learned today's
Mm,
podcast, Mark, your words of wisdom, really grateful for you to come onto the show. And guys, if you want to get more information, how you can get in touch with Mark, we've got all the links provided there for you on the provided links. He also provides a lot of solutions into businesses. So
mm.
please follow and subscribe to him. He's amazing. So guys, if this episode has been helpful and uplifting, we would love for you to write a review to inspire more listeners to get plugged in. We will continue to provide high value content in each of every episode. If you don't mind sharing this podcast show on social media by inviting others, it would mean the world to me. Every time you tag me, we will get the opportunity to share those posts, and together, I say it again, together we can make a difference in the lives of others through inspiration episodes just like this. So there you have it. In closing, continue to unleash your greatness and tell yourself that I can, I will, and I must, and we will see you on the next episode.